Wherever you are in the world or whatever you're doing, I hope it includes a lot of travel, lots and lots of exciting travel. And one common question I get when I'm on tour is about travel insurance. And people say to me, when they see offers to buy travel insurance, say when you're booking a flight, is that they struggle to understand exactly what it covers and also can't always distinguish what policy they need based on their specific circumstance. It just happens when I was on tour that I saw Brandon Hubanks with the Travel Insurance Center, and he was speaking about travel insurance. And what really impressed me about Brandon is that he gives relatable scenarios that explain in layman terms which type of travel insurance would help by scenario, how it would help, and considerations that you should be aware of. So Brandon joins us to give us a crash course on 7 types of travel insurance so that we can really demystify and clear the clutter to understand what each one is for, when we should use it, how it can help, and also realistic considerations that we should bear in mind. So you can see the 7 types of insurance that we're going to cover right now. So we're just going to work through them one at a time. But first, Brandon, thank you for taking a minute to dial in with us.
Absolutely, thank you.
And what we have is a link beneath this video. If you want to reach Brandon directly, you can click the link and fill out the form and just say you want to speak with Brandon Hubanks directly, and he'll be able to reach out to you. So that way you can ask very specific questions and get additional guidance in addition to what we're going to cover today, which is probably at about a 1,500-foot view as opposed to getting into all the granular specifics, just in the interest of time. Brandon, one thing I took away from your talk is there's a certain set of questions that I can ask myself before any given trip. And if the answer is yes to any of those questions, that's a bit of a guiding principle as to whether I can get insurance if I choose to, or in some cases, I really should get insurance and should not travel without them. So that's something I took away from the talk that you gave. So with that, maybe let's just start with trip insurance. Sometimes I'm a little confused as to how to distinguish one from the other. So let's start with trip cancellation insurance.
Okay, so trip cancellation insurance is actually protecting the investment that you have made in your trip. So if you're booking a tour, if you're booking flights, hotels, cruises, anything that's prepaid and non-refundable, you can insure against on the trip cancellation side of things, so that if certain perils or something happens and it prevents you from being able to utilize those things in your investment, the travel insurance will actually refund the costs and monies that you spent for those items due to the fact that you can no longer use them or enjoy them. So trip cancellation, things like illness, injury, death of a traveler or a non-traveling family member, natural disasters, inclement weather. There's quite a few different reasons that you can cancel a trip under most travel insurance policies to get the money back that you have invested in that trip for something that's preventing you from traveling.
With those policies, I heard reference to cancel for any reason. Are there different tiers of trip cancellation that you have to be thinking about when you book?
The standard plan is all travel insurance products really are going to have that trip cancellation benefit, and the insurance company is going to list in there different reasons that they find acceptable for trip cancellation. So if you're canceling for one of those reasons, they'll refund 100% of your trip cost. Now, when it comes to cancel for any reason, you still get 100% for all those reasons that the company has in their policy. But if you are canceling for a reason that's not written in the plan, they'll give you a 75% refund with no exclusions or limitation. And you've also got that cancel for any reason rider on some products that just kind of allows, open cancellation.
Mm-hmm. My personal thought around that is if I'm just booking a little weekend trip to go visit a friend, it's not very expensive, and I know that I'm going barring a real exceptional circumstance, but I didn't pay a lot for that trip. My personal compass on that is that I'm not really concerned about it. But if I'm going on an African safari flying around the world, and if something came up business or personal related, and I would really be out of pocket significantly, that's where I'm really looking at it. What's your thought on using that as a guiding principle?
Well, and Russell, that's the perfect way to look at the situation, because a lot of times we'll might take a short trip for 3-4 days, might have $1,000 in it. If you lost $1,000, is it going to change your way of life or the way that you're going to handle yourself until your next trip? We have a lot of folks that some of those smaller trips, it's not very important for them to insure the actual cost of the trip. But if you're traveling internationally, you're most likely going to have higher flight costs, higher lodging costs. Your expenditures are a lot higher. So what I do is we look at if you had to cancel this trip and you couldn't go and you lost that amount of money, is it significant enough to your livelihood and your daily operation as to if you were to just lose that money and have it completely gone, or if you would need that money back to rebook?
Yeah. I like that because the answer to that question varies by person. There's no one size fits all answer to that, but it's a good guiding principle. Moving on to trip interruption. Could you speak to that one a little bit?
Sure. So trip cancellation and trip interruption kind of go hand in hand. Basically, once you've boarded that flight, or you've taken off from home to leave to go on that road trip, your trip cancellation benefit basically morphs into trip interruption. You're basically what they're doing is they're going to refund any portion of the trip that you did not get to use because you had to leave the trip early due to, again, one of those reasons written in the plan. Most of the reasons for trip cancellation are also the same for trip interruption. On international travel, or travel that you're not outside of road trips, somewhere that you've flown to, most policies will do up to 150% of the insured trip cost for the trip interruption benefit. Reason for that, they're going to refund you the portions of the trip you didn't get to use, plus they're going to give you, there's a little extra money in there to help you offset the cost of that emergency return ticket home. Because we all know if you've ever had to book a last minute return ticket, they're not cheap.
You're paying a premium.
So good. Let's say we've got a $10,000 trip, 10 days long. Day 3, you get sick. Okay, doc says you need to go home. You cannot continue to travel like this. So that trip interruption benefit is going to pay for the 7 days you didn't get to use. So there's $7,000, but they're going to go all the way up to $15,000 to help you offset the cost of that return.
And that's interesting because I hadn't thought of that. I would think if I'm sick, I've just got to tough it out. Now, depending on what it is, of course. And just the thought, it's very unsettling in the early stages of a trip to think, okay, well, I've got to pull the plug and head home. I'd be tempted to try to power through it, but of course it depends on the scenario. Break a bone or something like that. In some cases, it might not be practical. And then, could you, when you get insurance? You mentioned kind of cancellation interruption are kind of one and parcel. Can you book both together, or you book them separately generally, or one or the other?
So most products, in the U.S. products are listed as trip protection plans. So they're going to come with the trip cancellation, trip interruption, the travel delays, the baggage loss and delay, and then the medical and evacuation are going to be included kind of all as one package. The differentiating factor is how much medical, how much evacuation, how much baggage coverage do you need?
Yeah, I didn't realize that. So you get a package with each of the 7 types of insurance, and you're custom tailoring each one on a case-by-case basis. Okay.
Correct.
With that, you mentioned trip delay insurance.
Trip delay, sometimes also referred to in some policies as travel delay.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all flown somewhere before and you get stuck, right? There's a weather-related event, or there's a mechanical failure on an airplane or something like that, and you can't fly out. And we always hear horror stories. I had to sleep in the airport for overnight because my flight was canceled until the next morning. That trip delay benefit is going to give a $1 per day amount to offset any additional accommodations that you may have. So instead of sleeping in an airport, you go to a hotel. You save your hotel receipt. You get something from the airline stating what the situation was, or if it's a weather-related event, a news article from the local news networks. Then the insurance company will refund up to that daily benefit per person on the policy for those additional accommodations, things like hotels and transfers to and from. Some policies will even cover a little bit of food for you as well.
Now, in cases of cancellations and delays, does it matter the cause of the delay or the cause of cancellation? Can you get packages that cover them all, or is it only for specific causes?
Most of the time, there is predefined reasons that would be covered. Things like weather issues, mechanical issues, if there's a strike, things like that are covered. Now, one of the common questions we get to, Russell, is, well, what if we get to the gate and we don't have a flight crew?
That happens.
Flight crew caused delays, whether it's the crew or the pilots, is not covered by any insurance.
See, it's good to know. Or just no plane. In certain cases, planes have to be reallocated and they don't have one for you specifically, or well, mechanical issue can be one of the reasons for that. So, okay, so because that's something that's important to understand as well. Because I have to tell you, there's times where I probably have a false sense of security where I think I'm insured, but if it really came down to it, I might not actually be. And that's where I do feel a little bit of angst and uncertainty. It's never come back to bite me, but for yourself, do you provide guidance in terms of terms and conditions, like getting into that granular stuff? Like if I was a bit uncertain about that, when we're booking?
Absolutely. Every quote that we provide is going to come, the certificate of insurance. The actual policy wording comes with every single quote, because it's one thing. We want to provide that so that you can see kind of the nuts and bolts of the policy.
Yeah.
Take a look, and then if there's specific questions based on different wordings in the policy, understandings, bring it back and let us know. We're licensed insurance agents, so we can discuss the fine details, and we will definitely walk through all of the details if needed. Now, on the trip delay, a lot of people worry about what things might not be covered. I'll tell you the truth. 80% of travel delays are based on weather or mechanical. Those, you're going to get a few off that may not be covered, but it's very few.
Okay. Well, it's good to know, just in terms of a general rule of thumb, 80% of incidents historically that happen, generally you'll be covered for. Understanding that it's not bulletproof in terms of covering every situation. Moving on to baggage insurance.
Okay, so baggage delay is more common than baggage loss. When you order a package now, and you have it delivered by one of the major carriers, they're scanning that box, right? Every time it hits another facility, you can track where that box is at. Yeah. Your luggage is the same on all the airlines now. They track it as soon as somebody touches it and loads it on the plane, it's tracked. They take it off the plane, it's tracked. They'll know where it is. Now, for loss, we're seeing less and less claims for baggage loss, just because bags are never usually completely lost. They know where they are, they find them, and they get them back to you.
Yeah.
The biggest situation is the baggage delay. So if your bags are delayed for a certain amount of time, some policies are as little as 3 hours, some are as much as 24 hours. But that baggage delay benefit, basically they give you usually it's $300 and up, depending on the policy, per person, to purchase the incidental items needed until your bags arrive. I had a client that was going to a wedding in Italy. Long flight, wore sweats. This gal was wearing sweats and slippers on the plane because she wanted to be comfortable. Got to her airport in Italy, and she had no bag. So she had no dress or shoes to wear to the wedding. So she had to go with her baggage delay benefit. She actually was able to go purchase, a modest dress and shoes, so she wasn't wearing sweats to a family member's wedding.
Well, and that's expensive as well, that kind of clothing, or if you're going to a conference, or you have to have a suit or something like that. Not to mention complications of pulling that off in the short term, but generally, like a standard policy would cover you up to, is it a set amount, $500, or
most policies will start at $300 on that limit. We do have a lot of policies out there, though, that we can increase just that limit on the policy. We can add a rider to it to go up to as high as $2,500 a person if needed.
How about getting money back just for the checked bag fee in those cases? I'm not sure if that's insurable or not, but I presume that it comes down to the terms and conditions of the airline where they should refund you.
That's going to come down to the terms and conditions with the airlines, and the airlines would be refunding that.
Got it. Okay. Peter Greenberg, I've heard him complain to no end about a flight he took to Halifax with Air Canada. His bag, I don't know if he ever got it back. I think he did eventually, but never got into the details of what insurance he had or didn't have for that. Moving on to medical. This is where the bigger ticket items are. Two types of medical. There's out and inpatient care and emergency evacuation. So I'll hand it over to you for those.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you're taking an international trip, the one piece of insurance that you do not travel without is the medical and the emergency medical evacuation. Yeah. Most people have a sense of security thinking that, I have employer-sponsored health care, or I'm on Medicare. I'm covered wherever I go. If you're traveling internationally, most of the time that medical insurance is not going to go with you. Or if it does, in very few scenarios, less than 10% of employer-sponsored health plans will cover international travel. And most that do have, it's your deductible is doubled, your max out of pocket is doubled, so your expenses are quite high. So the travel insurance has that medical evacuation benefit included. Most of them are primary, so you don't have to worry about what your health insurance covers or doesn't cover, or deductibles, co-insurance. The travel insurance plan would be the first payer for you. Up to, most of them start at 50,000 and go up. Most people find that 100,000 or 250,000 on the medical side is quite comfortable for a short trip. But there is no co-insurance, there's no deductibles. I had a client in Italy who was hospitalized for 3 weeks. Perfectly healthy man, calls me a month after he gets home and he says, "Hey, I spent 3 weeks in a hospital in Italy. I had a stroke. Cost total medical bills $80,000."
Wow.
And then he had $260,000 for the evacuation from Italy back to the United States because he needed to be sent home on a medical jet.
Wow.
He spent $52 on his travel insurance policy just for the medical and evacuation. Other than that $52 for his premium, he never saw a bill. The insurance company pays direct for hospitalizations, so inpatient care. They paid directly for the entire bill, and then they arranged and paid for the entire evacuation up front. So you hear horror stories, people going somewhere and having to call family members because they're stuck in a hospital. They can't be treated or seen because, they want a huge deposit. That's where the travel insurance comes in. That huge deposit is made by the insurance companies. The insurance companies will do what they call a guarantee of payment to secure your admission and treatment within that hospital.
Common discussion point I have, kind of like at the kitchen table, is concern around what would be considered a known condition prior to traveling. And I think there's a little bit of diligence that someone needs to do maybe with their family doctor beforehand, just in terms of assessing that. But could you give a bit of guidance on that? Because even my parents, for example, traveling abroad, could this be considered or construed as a known condition if this happened or that happened? And I think there's a lot of angst and uncertainty around that. That does have some people going on the side of caution, saying maybe just best not to move forward and maybe just travel domestically.
Sure. Pre-existing conditions. Very common, and a lot of people just, like you said, they just have a lot of angst about how is this covered. So most travel insurance products, if you book them within their time-sensitive period, which is anywhere from 14 to 21 days, after making that initial deposit or payment for your trip, they're going to waive any pre-existing condition exclusions from the policy. So as long as you're medically fit for travel at the time you purchase the insurance, and you buy it within that time-sensitive period, there's no questions asked. They're going to cover the pre-existing conditions for you. Now, outside of that time-sensitive period, if you're purchasing, every policy is going to have what they call as a look-back period. It might be as little as 30 days to as much as 6 months. But the question then comes in, and I would ask, have there been any changes to diagnosis, medications, or any forms of treatment in the last however many days that the policy we're looking at is? Most are 60 days. So with my clients, I'll just simply ask, have you had any changes in the last 60 days to anything medically? And most people come back and say, I haven't been to the doctor in the last 60 days. So then we know nothing's changed. It's covered on the travel insurance product then.
Is it overkill to go to the doctor, maybe get a note to just kind of confirming that for the file?
I would say if you do take daily maintenance drugs, something like that, it would not hurt to contact the doctor's office or just do a well-checked visit and just have them notate your chart.
Yeah.
That way, if something does come up, that yes, I did see this patient, no changes, everything is fine, and he was advised to go ahead and travel.
Yeah.
It never hurts to take that extra step. Okay, so outpatient medical care. So if you're sick or injured on a trip and you need to go to urgent care or a physician's clinic, most policies are going to have you just go ahead and pay the bill to the doctor's office, bring home the receipt and the paperwork showing what you were treated for. When you get home, submit that to the insurance company for reimbursement. The inpatient care, you definitely let the insurance company know as soon as you know you have to be hospitalized. And the evacuation, once you've let them know you're hospitalized, that's where the evacuation is kind of going to kick in, and they're already going to have the ball rolling on that for you.
Got it. If anyone has specific questions that we haven't covered or wants to get into more detail, you can contact Brandon directly through the link below this. And when you click on it, in the comments, just put Brandon Hubank's name, saying you'd like to speak with him directly, and he'll be able to reach out to you with the information you provide. So with that, Brandon, thank you very much with the Travel Insurance Center. Hope to see you on the road again sometime in the near future. And happy travels to you in the meantime. And really appreciate you giving this information for everyone watching today.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Russell. Safe travels.